Right. All right. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Who remembers the gospel from last week? It was one of those gospels about
loving your enemies.
Loving and stuff. Jesus.
Oh, yeah. Was it that one?
Who remembers?
What was that one?
All right. I'll read it to you. Sunday's gospel, and it really struck me. It's from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 6. He says, "But I say to you who hear," an interesting way to say that, "love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who spitefully use you." These are really hard words. "To him who strikes you on one cheek," and you can imagine this visual, and it's not necessarily physical, "offer the other. And from him who takes away your jacket, do not withhold your shirt either. Give to everyone who asks of you, and from him who takes away your goods, do not ask for them back. And just as you want men to do this to you, you should also do to them likewise. But if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. And if you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? For even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much back. But love your enemies, do good, and lend, hoping for nothing in return." Love your enemies, do good, and lend, hoping for nothing in return, and your reward will be great. And you will be sons of the Most High, for he is kind to the unthankful and evil. Therefore be merciful, just as your Father also is merciful. And then he goes on, "Judge not that you be not judged. Condemn not that you be not condemned. Forgive and you will be forgiven. Give and it will be given to you." And so on and so forth. I'm sure you all heard this gospel last week. And as we go through life and we get older, this gospel should strike us. It should strike us at every level. Why? Because it's really just unnatural, right? I mean, if you boil this down to the level of a dog, right? I mean, if you kick a dog enough times, next time you get near a dog, the dog growls. Dog's not interested in giving you love if you kick it, right? And there's certain people, when you get near the dog growls, right? And they just know, no bueno. And so this is an extremely unnatural commandment that Christ is giving. It's almost weird. Someone hits you on the cheek, physically or emotionally, and you turn the other. Possible? Have any of you ever done that? So, why did Christ say these words? These words are ridiculous. And I'll say it again. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who spitefully use you. This is ridiculous, isn't it? Impossible. Right? So why did Christ say it? Why did he say these things? Any thoughts? I mean, he might as well tell us to walk on water. Almost as easy as some of these things. And I'll take it another step. I could do some of these things to people I don't care about. All right, someone cuts me off on the freeway and I go, you know what? I'm going to be a gracious person, not honk at them, not tell them the number 1 through my window, right? Because, I'm a Christian. I'm a good person, and maybe they're in a rush or maybe there's a situation. That's why I'm going to be a good person. But when you're significant other or good friend or someone you're dating or husband or wife does some of these things, it's a lot harder. All right? I can forgive random guy X. So why is Christ telling us these things?
Because we're called to be different.
Called to be different. Okay. He's giving us aspirational goals. He's, he could also say, you guys should all learn how to fly. Aspirationally. Yeah.
I think it's a way to let go of our pride and our egos. It's a way for us to give up things like when you're offended, it's I'm offended. It's me that's offended.
Okay.
The other person. So you're letting those things go.
So it's a way to, I'm just repeating, it's a way to give up your pride and your ego. When you're offended, you're saying, I'm offended. And by relenting, I'm allowing myself to be offended.
And it's also to give the unconditional love of Christ and some reflection of that.
Okay, good. All right. We're getting somewhere. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who spitefully use you. To him who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from him who takes away your cloak or your jacket, do not withhold your tunic or shirt either. Give to everyone who asks from you, and from him who takes away your goods, do not ask for them back. So what kind of person is this? I was going to go doormat. Doormat? I think that's our current terminology for what I just described. Positive or negative? Quite negative. So, couple things. First thing we think about is the difference in perspective between a Christian perspective and the world's perspective, right? I do any of this list of things in the world, I'm a doormat. I have no strength of character. I have no backbone. I am weak. All the things that people would say about someone in this position. I have no self-dignity, no self-respect. Don't you even respect yourself? Okay? The next level is maybe he isn't really necessarily talking about us. Maybe he's talking about himself. To him who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other. Him who takes away your cloak, give him your shirt. To everyone who asks from you, give to everyone who asks of you. And from him who takes away your goods, do not ask for them back. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Who's he talking about? Maybe he's talking about himself. Maybe he's saying, this is who I am. And if you read the rest of it, you realize, yeah, that pretty much is it.
We're supposed to be like
Let me get there. Right, so what he's trying to say is the sun shines on the righteous and the sinful. And I'm like that. This is who I am. And this list, unfortunately, doesn't often sound like the God that we hear about at church, or maybe the God we hear about from our parents. We hear about a vengeful God. We hear about a God who, if you don't do this, you'll see what happens. Every time I would, run into something, hit a corner, my mom would say, Shuf Rabbina, because you're bad. I just rounded the corner a little fast and, got it in my side. She goes, that's because you didn't listen to me last week. You didn't do the dishes. God did that to you. And I don't think that's the way God works, right? But she was portraying to me what kind of God? Pretty vengeful God, right? And sometimes the God that's portrayed to us isn't like this guy. Because this guy is ridiculously loving. I mean, the things here, we just agreed, this isn't even human, is it? because it isn't human. I've never met someone who did any of these things. Maybe a few people, but not very many. I don't know anybody who does stuff like this. And so what God is maybe trying to say is, this is who your father is. You know, there was a movie a little while back about a father who knew he was going to die. He had terminal cancer. And so he started recording a series of videos to his son, who his wife was pregnant with at the time. And he knew he was going to die. And so he kept recording videos. And he said, now you're 2. And you're going through this and this and this. And now you're 3. And now you're 5. And now you're 8. And now you're 16 and you're going to go on your first date. And now you got your first car. And now you're 18 and you can vote. And now you're 21 and you can do this. And he recorded all about himself so that his son would know who his dad was. It's a great movie because the dad's just in the videos. It's a very famous actor, but he's just in these videos. And his son, as his son goes through them, his mom goes, all right, on your 16th birthday, Dad wants you to watch this. And his dad was giving himself. This is who your dad is. And not only this is who your dad is, this is who you are. So I want you to imagine for a moment, if someone has a child's 3 years old, and he gets kidnapped, and you find out your son has been kidnapped and these terrorists have taken your son and they've got him held hostage in some dungeon or something where they all live, where a bunch of terrorists and thieves live. And they've decided to raise your son. So you know your son's alive, and you know these group of thugs with their questionable morals and their horrific lives are raising him. And they're going to raise him to be a terrorist. And they're going to teach him how to shoot a gun and how to blow people up and how to kill people. And you know this is what's happening. What do? Huh? That's right. The first thing you can do is you can try to storm the complex. Right? You get a SWAT Team 5 or whatever, Ninja 9 or whatever group that went in and got Osama bin Laden. You rally them and you say, let's go in and let's get our kid. But this fortress is very well protected. So you can't get in there. Right? You can't go in and extract him out of this fortress. And you know he's going to be raised by horrible people. What do? You're his dad. You can't get him out. And you don't want to see him grow up like this. You don't want him to see him being taught that murder is right and torture is the way to go and you should execute people with a knife. What do? This dad, he decided, I'm going to dress up like a terrorist. I'm going to wear a disguise and I'm going to go into the fortress. And I'm going to live with them. And I'm going to meet my son quietly. And I'm going to talk to him. And I'm going to influence him. And at some point, after talking with my son, and I'm going to tell him, I'm your dad. But don't tell anyone else. I'm your dad. Don't listen to the other guys. Listen to me. And when they tell you this is how you should act, I want you to listen to how I think you should act. And when they tell you to hurt another person, I want you to love another person. Did that event happen? What do we call that event? We celebrated it today, hint. The incarnation. So Christ couldn't extract us after we fell, so he went in after us and became one of us and lived and dwelt among us to teach us about our Father, so that we start to get not just the image of our Father, right, which we have because we're born and we have the same ears and the same eyes and the same nose as our Father, but I don't want you to just have the same image. I want you to be like me. This is how I talk. This is how I react. This is how I think. This is what the incarnation is. So when you read verses like this, what's going on? Dad is in the terrorist camp. He turns to his son and he says, pray for those who abuse you. Bless those who curse you. When someone smites you on the cheek, turn the other cheek. What's he saying? This is me. This is who I am. Now, why is he telling us this? Is he telling us this because he's saying you have to do these things? If you do these things, you go to heaven. If you don't do these things, you go to hell. Is that why he's saying it? Because guess what? Then we're all on the Hell Express, right? So that can't be it. So why is he saying these things? Why is he telling us to do the impossible? What he's doing is he's saying, look, this is me. This is your dad. Now, I want you to do whatever you want to do. Go live your life. But I want you to know who I am. And I want you to know when you react, I want you to know how I would have reacted. What's he giving us? He's giving us, someone right behind me, he's giving us a measure. He's saying, I'm your father, and you know you're like me when you do these things. And you know you're not like me when you don't do these things. I'm not telling you to force it, because it's very hard to force, right? You know, we've talked about this before, right? When you have to tell yourself, Mark, go ahead, have a seat, Habibi, just have a seat. Rest, Gamila. When you have to tell yourself, I need to be humble, must be humble, you're not humble. Humble people don't have to tell themselves they're humble, right? Loving people don't say, I have to love them, okay, gotta love them. Then you're not loving, right? You can't force these things. You can't fake it, right? So when I find myself not loving, I find myself not blessing, I find myself not forgiving, I find myself not turning my other cheek, I find myself not giving my shirt when someone asks for my coat, I find myself not lending and not hoping to receive back, what do I think? I'm not like my dad. Something's off. So what should I do? Should I say, must bless, must, pray for those who spitefully use me, must, whatever, who curse me? Is that what I need to do? I need to get closer to my dad. What this is, it's like, when you have a fever, you get your temperature taken, and the thing says 102. Is the problem that the thing says 102? Is that a problem? That's not the problem, right? What's the problem? There's a virus that's making me at 102. I got to fix the problem. The thermometer is not a problem. It's just mercury, or it used to be, right? Now it's a digital device that takes your temperature with this head scan, right? I'm dating myself, clearly. We used to put mercury in our mouth. Mercury is poisonous. What are we thinking? Anyway, so the temperature gun, I don't look at the temperature gun and go, man, this is a problem. No, problem's inside. So when I find myself not blessing and not praying and not loving people who do bad things to me, I must say to myself, I'm not really that close to my dad. Something's off in the relationship. How do I fix it? Fix the relationship. And that is not the same as I need to go to church more. That's just attending things. And those are great things. But that's not the solution. The solution is I need to go to church more and I need to find my dad in church. And if I don't associate with my dad in church and I don't get closer to my dad in church, and I can be there all day and all night, and I can attend, 78-hour vigils and say all the things and do all the stuff, but I'm not getting closer to dad. I'm just saying things and attending things and standing a really long time and my legs hurt. Or I can fast and just, not eat food and eat tameya, and I get really good at eating tameya, and I know how to make food real good. but that doesn't mean I'm closer to my dad. And so what we end up becoming is by association, we become like our father. And so when we read passages like this, I don't want you to see this as a cookbook. This isn't, I got to do the things and go to heaven. It's more like, if any of these things are not there, then something's off. I'm not like my dad. Make sense? All right. Let's roll it one step deeper. So if he's saying, I'm like this, I'm your father, and this is the way I am. If you want to be like me, be like this. Why would he tell us to do something like that? This is prohibitively difficult to do. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who use you. Not just use you, spitefully use you. Why would you do anything like this? Why would God ask you to do something like this?
I think it's to free you.
Michael and Tamar. Free you from what?
There's a certain thing that you end up holding on to. You have these feelings of animosity towards people. If someone treats you badly, you tend to internalize it.
Say louder so everyone can hear you.
You tend to internalize the things that are done to you.
What do you mean by internalize the things that are done to you?
So if something negative happens to you, you feel resentment, you feel upset, you feel anger. And when you pray for the other person, when you do good for the other person, when you love the other person, you end up letting those things go, and you have
Louder.
Louder? I don't know how to explain it.
You're doing a great job. You internalize when people hurt you. And that happens two ways. The first one is you build resentment toward that person. And when you do that, you end up reliving the resentment. And you think about it. And then you think about it again. And then again. And you play it over. And if she had done this, and if he had done that. So that's the first place. But then the second place you internalize is, what did I do to deserve that? What's wrong with me? What am I portraying that would make another human being do such a thing to me? You start to doubt your own self-worth. And so Michael's right on. What Christ is asking you to do, there's a quote from Buddha. He says, anger is punishment that you do to yourself for the sins of others. Anger is a punishment we inflict on ourselves for the sins of others. And so what happens is, when I don't do these things, who loses? I lose. I lose. So what's he asking you to do? He's asking you to win. He's saying, if you don't do this, you will be in a cycle of hatred and resentment and bitterness and anger, one you will not be able to get out of. And you know, I was at the PT this morning. I have a problem in my foot, and it's been there for 3 months. Plantar fasciitis, you know what I'm talking about? It's a thing. The kids talk about it these days, right? The old people talk about it. And he said, how long has it been? And I said, 3 months. You know what he said? He went like that. That's never a good sound. He said, you know what? Now it's chronic. Now it's getting chronic. What does chronic mean? That means I didn't nip it in the bud. He's like, you didn't roll it with an ice bottle? Nope. Did you do the little ball thing? Nope. Did you do the exercises? Nope. Did you do anything I told you? Nope. So then he does that sound again. So what happened? It's dug in. He's like, now you got 6 months ahead of you before you're going to get out of this. Because you didn't fix it in the first 3. So now you got a longer wait. Now, why does God do this with the body? A, to help us realize we're old, encourage us to die at some point. When your life sucks that badly, you're like, yeah, I'm ready to go now. Everything hurts. Okay? Why else does God do that with the body? Is he trying to teach us about himself through the body? Is he telling us that when you have a spiritual sickness, you got to nip it in the bud? Because if you don't nip it in the bud, it goes chronic. And once it goes chronic, you don't get rid of it that easily. It's kind of like when a kid steals a candy bar, that first candy bar, you got to end that. When you guys have kids and they get caught stealing that first candy bar, you got to end that because he's going to steal another one. And everybody who's caught for a multi-million-dollar, embezzlement as a CEO or a CFO will tell you how it started. How did it start? The candy bar when I was 7. So the sooner you nip that in the bud, the better. And so what Christ is telling us to do in this is you got to nip all these things in the bud or they go chronic. And once you're resentful, chronic, you guys ever met a grouchy old man? Stay off my lawn, kids. Hates everybody. They pointed at Benoob. You're too young to be grouchy old man, Benoob. You're getting there quick.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. I talked about this a few weeks ago about the story of the paralyzed man when his 4 friends broke the ceiling. What was Jesus' reaction? Did he get pissed? Is he like, I can't believe you broke the ceiling. There's dust in my hair. And Jesus had long flowing hair. I've seen the pictures, right? So he was sweet. But I've met old people, and old people kind of go one of 2 directions, don't they? They're either really sweet or they're really just grouchy and pissed off all the time, and they fight all the time, and they argue about stupid things all the time. And you kind of just end up in one of 2 camps before you die.
That's already the second one.
Benoob's in the second one already. How old are you, Benoob?
22.
22. He's an old soul. And so what Christ is warning us against here, he's first saying, this is who I am. And then he's giving you the thermometer to say, are you like me? And the reason he's telling you that is he's saying, you don't want to end up not like me. You don't want to end up not like me. Because it sucks. And once it goes chronic and digs in, whatever sin it is, it doesn't come out. The fathers in the paradise of the fathers, there's a story about a monk, and this other monk tells him, I've got this problem. What do I do? He goes, I want you to go and see that tree right there. I want you to pull it out. And the guy goes, what? I can't, tree? He's like, yeah, pull out the tree. And then he's like, I can't pull out the tree. So then he points at a little sapling on the ground. He goes, well, pull that out. He goes, sure. Boom, plucks it. And he says, see how easy that was? If only you'd done that sooner, you could have got rid of the tree. But now, your sin is a tree. It's not a little thing that you can pluck out. And once it becomes a tree and it's in your heart, it becomes a part of you. It's kind of like cancer, right? When they cut it out, it gets morphed into the other cells. It's everywhere, right? It just becomes a part of you. And you can't get rid of it, right? And the trees grow in our heart. Trees of resentment, trees of bitterness, trees of anger, trees of jealousy, trees of hatred, trees of lust, trees of greed, selfishness. And they grow and they grow and they grow. And if you don't nip them, you're done for. Because then you got to hire a team of 4 guys with chainsaws, and they're going to charge you $400. It can be done, but you got to get a chainsaw. And it's drastic. I'll tell you guys a story. When When I was young, we had we had a backyard that had Italian cypresses. I don't know if you know Italian cypress. It's a long, skinny tree that just goes up. And my dad planted this row of Italian cypresses because he said, as this thing grows, it's going to give us cover and the neighbors can't see us and we're going to win, right? So we all spent a month digging up, planting, my brother and I, because that's what we did back then, slave labor. We didn't hire gardeners like your parents do. Our lives sucked. So we're digging up the things, and these Italian cypresses grow, and they grew over years. And then after about 3 years, one of them just stopped growing, which of course pissed me off, right? And the rest start growing, and this one just stops. I'm like, freaking A, right? So my dad's like, of course, Saturday project. Oh, Dad, I was going to go with my friends. You're not going with your friends now. You got a Saturday project. You guys aren't familiar with these concepts, but that's what my dad did to me. We got to figure out why this thing is doing this. So we buy fertilizer. We start putting more water in it. We start giving it Magic Grow. We start doing all the things. Nothing's working. Right? It's Magic Grow. This couldn't. Right? Miracle Grow. That's what it is. That's why he's laughing at me. Tell me. No, that's why you're laughing. You're laughing for other reasons. Miracle Grow. Thank you. So anyway, we put all the things. Nothing happens. So we start figuring out, we got to figure out. So another Saturday project, let's start. So we start kind of digging around, trying to figure out is there a pipe? Is there something? As we're going in with the sticks, we hit something, right? Turns out there's a big rock directly beneath the roots of this Italian cypress. So the roots of the Italian cypress started growing. They got to a certain point, right? And you guys took botany, this much root supports this much tree. It stopped at a certain point and that was it. It couldn't go past the rock. So, of course, another Saturday project, we had to figure out how to get the rock out, dig up the freaking thing, get the rock out, plant new soil, fertilize, We do all this work. Lo and behold, the tree starts to grow and catches up with its buddies. So, our lives are all about removing rocks. That's what we do. And it doesn't end. It doesn't end when you're in college or graduate school or married or kids, or grandparents. We remove rocks. And what happens is your life starts to progress and you hit a rock. And the rock is a bad boyfriend, girlfriend, selfish, whatever. You remove that rock, the roots start growing, and guess what happens? They hit another rock because your husband's a jerk and your wife's whatever. And then you pull that rock out, the roots start to grow, and then all of a sudden your kids are just freaking nightmares. All of them. All three of them. And then you pull that rock out. And then you hit another rock. Right? And it really doesn't end. Right? The rocks keep coming. That's loud. Because the roots keep growing. Okay? So, what Christ is telling us is these are the biggest rocks. The people who curse you, the people who use you, the people who abuse you, the people who are enemies, the people who steal from you, who take your shoes and don't return them, the people who borrow from you and don't pay you back. This is where the reality hits. And I want to end with this. This is really where Christianity is. And I don't like to minimize other things, but sometimes we think Christianity is at church. Right? We go to church and we be Christians there. Like when we pray, we close our eyes and we hit our chest and we do things, right? We make sure everybody can see. Okay? That's not what Christianity is. What's that? Huh? That's the well. That's the fountain of life. Right? So I go to the fountain of life and I drink. I get some energy, and then what do? I leave the fountain and I go be a Christian. How do I go be a Christian? This is it. This isn't about, how long was my tasbihah and how many chapters did I read in the Bible and how many Psalms did I memorize. No. That's easy. That's easy. How many stories of saints did I learn? That's easy. How much history did I read about St. Athanasius and the Council of Nicaea? That's easy. Wait till someone spitefully uses you. That's hard. And that's the real deal. And that's where we fail sometimes as Christians. We're really good at the other stuff. We can go follow the bishops, and we can go to ceremonies, and we can put on batrachels, and we can wear tonyas, and we can do the dance, and we can, have appearances in the priest, and they can put us up on the stage, and people can clap for us, and yay. That's not Christianity. That's not where it lives. It lives right in this passage, right? And this is where we sometimes as Christians fall, because we'd rather do the easy stuff. We'd rather go memorize a psalm, memorize a hymn, go to a lecture, go to some ceremony, go to a meeting, go to anything. I'll even eat tameya, right? And in Lent, St. John Chrysostom has this quote that just boggles your mind. He says, we fast from the flesh of animals and birds and chicken, but we eat the flesh of each other in gossip. So during Lent, you won't eat the flesh of an animal, but you'll eat the flesh of your brother, like a cannibal. And we do. And we've attended people who've eaten the flesh of other people right in front of us with their gossip. And so I would love to not eat chicken, but I'm not going to stop eating the flesh of my brother. That's not Christianity. That's just not eating chicken. It's nice, but that's not Christianity. Right? I stop the chicken so I can learn to control myself, so I can not eat the flesh of my brother. And so sometimes we get so focused on the outward appearances that we don't do these things. This is where it's at. And this is the hard stuff. And this is why Christianity is very, very simple. It's not complicated. It's very simple. It's just very hard. Right? Here's the list of stuff to do. Piece of cake. You don't need to read Leviticus and the rest of the Bible. Here's the list. Now go try to do it. Especially when someone you love does something to you, burns you, betrays you, stabs you in the back. Right? Loving that person, forgiving that person. Now I'm in the image and likeness of God. Right? And that's the real deal. That's the hard part. And when I find myself failing here, which I do on a daily basis, I will even go hourly basis, maybe even minutely basis, I have to ask myself, is my relationship with my dad good, or can it be better? Why am I not absorbing the characteristics of my father? Am I not hanging out with him enough? Because, when you hang out with your dad a lot, you start to talk like your dad, and you start to think like your dad, and you tell jokes like your dad, and you approach problems like your dad. That's what you do. And you all started to notice you say things like your parents, like, that's crap. That's something my mom would say. That's something my dad would say. And you hate it, but that's going to happen because you've been in the same house for 20 years. That's normal. So if I'm not doing that with God, why not? Am I not in the same house? Am I not hanging out? Are we not chatting? Are we not talking? Because if we're talking, I start to talk like you and act like you and absorb your characteristics. So don't go and force yourself to do these things. It's not going to work. Don't say, I got to bless them. I must pray for them. But they're real jerks. I hate them. That's just kind of a Band-Aid. It's not going to work. You still hate them. Go deeper. Say, my relationship with my dad isn't fixed. I'm going to fix that first. And then I'm going to do all these things. I'm not going to try to be humble. I'm just going to live with my dad. And then humility will come out of me. Love will come out of me. Forgiveness will come out of me. And I can't even stop it. And I can't hate anybody. And we know people like this, right? The really cute tetas and giddus, right? Who can't hate anybody. And no matter what happens, you tell them, oh, tita, did you hear about the mass murderer? They're like, habibi, asli kan zaghayyar, and his dad was abusive. And that's why, they can't hate anybody. It's just love, right? And when you read about near-death experiences and people who are in the hospital and die and they flatline for a few minutes and they talk about their experiences on the other side, it's quite striking at the similarities between these stories. It's striking. And the part that strikes you is when they meet God or they meet saints, all they feel is love. Even the shame is, I wish I'd been better. I wish I'd loved people more. I wish I'd forgiven more. There's no anger, there's no shame, there's no, oh, you broke the commandments and now watch you burn. It's just a feeling of overwhelming love, right? That's the Father. That's who we're attracted to. This guy. And whoever this guy is, you should marry this guy. If you find a guy who does these things, or a girl that does these things, just marry them, right? Because why? They're the image and likeness of Christ. All right, I'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions? Because the squeaky toy's out. So it's really, that's how the lesson ends, is when the squeaky toys come out. Nothing? Any thoughts, musings, anecdotes, funny stories, good jokes? Nothing, Peter? Fariba. All right. Glory be to God forever. Amen. I have Urban.